Welcome to Voice of San Diego at Home. It is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. I'm Scott Lewis, the Editor-in-Chief and CEO of Voice San Diego. We've got a great show today. We're going to talk to Karla Maldonado. She is a special education advocate and wanted to get a parent's perspective as well on how these first few days are going and just a perspective specifically from somebody who advocates for some of our most vulnerable students and how they're getting through this. It has started. School has started. How's everybody doing out there? Put your comments in. What has it been like? If you're a parent, a teacher, a student, anybody involved in the schooling world or education world, what has it been like? I want to hear your stories. We want to react to them. And if you have any questions specifically for Karla Maldonado when she comes on, we'd like to hear what we can do to help you navigate your own special needs or other issues with the school district. There was a weird announcement and then non-announcement by the school district. We'll talk about that, about appointments that special education students could get, but apparently can't get for a while. We'll see what the story was behind that if we can get to it. Let's go through some news though. First, big breaking story yesterday by Lisa Halverstadt on our site. Lisa Halverstadt revealed, you remember this building, 110 Ash Street. This is the building that the city of San Diego leased to own. Last night, Lisa got a hold of a little bit of scoop. She found out that Mayor Kevin Faulconer has decided to stop paying rent. Stop paying rent. Just stop paying the annual rent on this building that the city is leasing to own. Just stop paying the rent. What happens with that? Don't know. But the people who were collecting the rent probably don't like that, probably not so happy about that situation. The mayor, the city's choice to halt the rent payment comes less than 4 years into a 20-year, $128 million deal designed to allow the city to eventually own. Remember that building was the old Sempra headquarters downtown. Now, this is a really incredible moment for this whole discussion. Remember, there's a bunch of buildings or people or city employees across the city that work not just in City Hall but all over the county, all over the city. And the city wanted to put a lot of them in this building, 101 Ash Street, and keep them there so they wouldn't have to pay rent. That was the idea, and now they've stopped paying rent entirely on that building, and we do not know what will happen after that. But it is the desire of the people who are suing the city. And so this people suing the city, led by former city attorney Mike Aguirre, wanted the city to stop making payments on that, and it has now complied. Fascinating decision by Mayor Kevin Faulconer. I wrote a thing also this week, team reopening schools too. Basically, I wrote a story about why I think it's a little weird that the governor decided to open bars or restaurant bars, gyms, all kinds of other things before we had secured the safe reopening of schools. I also talked to some UC San Diego scientists who have been advising the San Diego Unified School District. They wrote a letter to the county pleading with the county to pull back on some of these decisions to reopen before they got schools safely reopened. They said, however, broadly reopening activities immediately before the Labor Day weekend and while K-12 schools are resuming instruction puts the county at a risk of a resurgence, especially because we have only recently moved into the red phase and have not yet fully contained the outbreak. We anticipate a rapid increase in case numbers as happened after the Memorial Day and 4th of July holidays and the subsequent reclosing of businesses and schools. I ran through that history. Remember this summer, school districts said, we're going to open, we're ready, we'll do it, we'll make it happen, just give us more money. They gave them more money. It didn't happen because the numbers got out of control. The governor closed everything again, and school districts said, well, we're not reopening. If that's going to be the case, things finally started getting better. You know, we hit it like an equilibrium, I feel like, where we realized we could have more economic activity if we kept it outside. And we were keeping the virus not only contained, but constrained, like we were lowering the numbers. And so, of course, perfect time to blow it all up. So I don't know. I don't know. I want to hear from you folks. If you're a teacher, a parent, a student, How is it going so far? I'm going to keep my own perspective here for now because this is the first week. I'm not sure. It's been really hard for a lot of people I know, and scrolling through the parents forums on Facebook is just an endless scroll of, did you get this communication? Do you know how this works? Why can't I get into this? Everybody's become a tech support or tech need person. It is pretty crazy. Chalkbeat had a really interesting story today. K-12, the country's largest operator of virtual schools, they've been doing this for a while, says enrollment has jumped from 23,000 students last year to 170,000 this year, and it's still growing. Connections Academy, the second largest virtual school network, has a growth of 61%. People are turning to some of these options of places that have done it for a while. Today, one of the things you remember that they said they need to see in the San Diego Unified School District before they open schools was to see outbreaks hit the county's trigger for only 7 outbreaks over 7 days. Remember, that was a trigger they put in a while. We've been watching that because they've lost control of that outbreak situation for many months now. Those outbreaks have been 20, 21, 18, 25. It's just never going to get down to 7, it feels like. And so it felt like kind of an impossible threshold that the school district had put in place. Well, today, this is bananas. Dr. Wilma Wooten, the county public health officer, said that the county just may revisit that trigger. The county may just revisit that trigger. There's one that's partially controlling our lives right now. I'm just going to revisit that because it appears that they may never, ever get underneath it. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We've been doing investigative reporting about city council candidate Kelvin Barrios. He acknowledged in a new filing that he was this is a breaking story today by Andrew Keats and Jesse Marks on voiceofsandiego.org. Kelvin Barrios acknowledged in a new filing that he was being paid by a private sector union at the same time that he was on staff for council president Georgette Gomez. It was only a week, but in that week he did some interesting things. Same day he took a job with that union, the laborers union, he forwarded an email from his city council account to his new union account containing a housing proposal that a developer had presented to Gomez's office the year before, and it had been labeled confidential submission to MTS. He also forwarded an email on January 14th, his final day in Gomez's office, while he's being paid by the union, to the union account containing guidelines for submitting proposals to the California Natural Resource Agency grant program. Very interesting development in that saga. Follow all of what Jesse and Andrew Keats have been finding. They responded to the reporting saying, look, he's a good guy. He made some mistakes. Who hasn't made some mistakes? All right, let's turn to our guest. I'm excited to have her on. Karla Maldonado is a special education advocate. I've seen her active in all these forums as people have been trying to handle all these questions about school reopening and what's happening. She's been following it like a hawk. Karla, hello, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. Trying to manage all of this craziness. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a special education advocate. What do you do?
I'm a special education advocate. What I mostly do is support families in the county of San Diego regarding the special education process for their child. We start from getting them identified to getting the right supports in place, because we highly believe that every child can make progress if you provide the tools that they need.
And you're a parent as well, right?
I am also a parent of a special needs child, and that's what got me started in this journey, because I thought it was going to be easy, and was I surprised?
Yeah.
It's not an easy process.
No, it's not. And we're a family as well in that system. You do have to advocate for yourself a lot. Well, when this happened, when we switched to remote learning, what was the first thing you noticed about how things were going and what we needed to worry about specifically with kids who had special needs and had special education IEPs, individual education plan?
Well, the first thing I noticed back in March, right, was that a lot of the districts were expecting to be granted waivers because that was the first thing that kind of came out of special ed. Everybody wanted a waiver on IDEA. And IDEA is the federal law and the state law that protects our special education students. And the Department of Education said, no waivers. So they kind of didn't know what to do because it was hard. A lot of our students will not respond to virtual therapies or virtual learning. And a lot of them required huge amounts of support. And what I was scared of, that we usually sit in an IEP meeting and we have maybe 8 people sitting at the table. And it's not that we're all having a party, right? It's because those 8 people play a crucial role in the development of that child's educational program. We have highly trained therapists like occupational therapists, speech and language therapists. And suddenly, come March 16th, we only have the parent. The parent was stripped of all supports and they don't have the training. They tried to do the best they could, but they're not specialists. And we started seeing our most impacted students really struggle and literally fall apart. And a lot of them regressed.
Yeah, so it was, and I mean, a lot of us worried about that. We got a letter at the end of last year that said they're not required to provide special education services. You laughed.
Well, no.
Why do you laugh?
I'm laughing because they thought they were going to get a waiver. They never thought that Betsy DeVos, with everything she does, was going to say, I'm not granting any waivers. And she didn't. Governor Newsom did grant some leniency regarding initial assessments, which he wasn't very clear it was initial assessments. He just said we don't have to provide assessment plans. Well, in the state of California, if you don't have an assigned assessment plan, you don't have to do an assessment, right? Mm-hmm. So assessments were stopped, and we did see districts like Chula Vista that said, we can't have any IEP meetings this year. We'll see you next year. But all those were clear violations of FAPE and of IDEA. San Diego Unified did have some IEP meetings, but not a lot of them. And a lot of the students, or a lot of my clients, were provided services, but they were not really services. They were provided packets, right? And in order to qualify for an IEP, you usually need specialized academic instruction. Well, sending a packet to a parent, it's not really providing academic instruction because the parent really doesn't know how to provide that instruction, right? Mm-hmm. It was just a lot of our clients couldn't do the packets. So they were basically not given any services. But the Department of Education in the United States did say that if children did not receive the services per their IEP and the district did not put forth a good effort, doesn't mean they have to be exactly like they were written, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, but they had to try to do something, then those children may be owed compensatory education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We'll take some comments here. We have one person, Melissa, said that she did sit in 25 IEP meetings between April and June. So there was some going on. What were you referring to specifically? I
was talking about Chula Vista. Oh, San Diego Unified we have multiple school districts in San Diego County, right? Yeah. Some districts really did have meetings and others chose not to. San Diego Unified did have IEP meetings.
What was your understanding of how things were being prepared for this year and how they've started out so far?
My understanding, and are we just talking about San Diego Unified, because every district is so unique, right?
Yeah, let's do San Diego Unified.
My understanding was that they were not very organized. We kept on getting messages at the beginning of the summer. They said, hey, we get more money. We're opening back up, at least for the first 6 months. Yeah. Then they backpedaled because the numbers got higher, and they said we're all just going to go in distance learning. But what I don't think anybody's bringing attention to the table is that in the guidelines, it does say that they can provide in-person instruction if the student is not able to access their education digitally, right? And we're not seeing any of that being provided.
Right. That's what confused us. There are some things going on where it does seem like, you could have one-on-one meetings in a very distant way with masks. You could take care of some of the kids who just literally can't physically connect online or otherwise might have attention or atypical approaches to learning. You could set up some of these appointments, and it seems like there's been a significant reluctance to doing that. However, a lot of us were pretty interested with the announcement that came out a couple weeks ago from San Diego Unified, saying, in fact, that they were going to start doing this for some of the kids who weren't meeting their IEP goals. But then last week, abruptly, I think it was Saturday, we got a voicemail and a message from the director of special education at San Diego Unified that said, no, we're not doing that until all kids go back or until there's some indefinite period in the future. It was very confusing.
I actually have it here. And what she was saying is it has to get board approval it's called phase 1. And it has to get board approval, which the San Diego Unified School Board is meeting on September 8th. So I think we'll have hopefully more guidance by then. But it is a voluntary program. So they do need teachers to volunteer to do that program.
Mm-hmm.
So that could also be an issue. But let's not forget that an IEP has a continuum of placements, right? So if your child really requires that, you can always look at a non-public agency, because there's a couple of non-public agencies that are providing in-person instruction and behavioral support. And another very important thing that I truly believe is crucial right now is if we have kids that are struggling to read, our kids with learning disabilities, like kids with dyslexia, how are they supposed to learn through the computer when a lot of the learning through the computer requires that they're able to read?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot. We can concentrate on the moderate to severe population, but there's a lot of kids that we may not be thinking of that are really struggling because, like you said, the attention or the learning disabilities.
What would you suggest they should try to do? There seems to be some commenters wondering if you're saying we should just open schools, we should be farther along that process, or do you think there should be some sort of phase for these kids that are having a lot more trouble?
I think our special ed kids should come back to in-person instruction. I see a lot of districts going that way. We have Carlsbad that will be opening up on September 22nd for the elementary schools. We have Coronado going back on the 14th for only the special education students. We also have Lakeside that is opened. I wrote them down. Del Mar's opening up on September 8th. El Cajon Valley opened up. I'm not sure if they're fully opened up, but I think we should bring back not only special ed students, but those students that are really struggling. I thought the plan that San Diego had about having kids identified that were getting ones and twos in the report card, which are kids that are really struggling. They're not up to Common Core standards or anywhere near. We should try to accommodate those kids. I'm not saying let's bring them back every day. I'm just saying let's think outside the box. We live in a beautiful city where we have wonderful weather. Our schools, some of them have big fields. We have non-public schools that actually put classrooms outside. That's how they were able to get their students back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to start really thinking outside the box, because these kids are not just not learning, they're losing ground. They're regressing.
How many families do you work with at any given time?
I currently have, it all depends, because I have families I've been working with them for years, and I just now see them every year for their IP meeting. And then I have new clients that obviously you see them more often because you're working on their case. It's not yet set, but right now I would say I have like around 45 clients.
Mm-hmm. And describe, before all this happened, describe what you would usually have to do to make sure students got what they were entitled to, if they had special needs or other individualized plans.
Well, we usually like to have a conference with the parent to see what their concerns are. And then we request all records. I believe in reading every single page because my client may be 10 years old, but the issues may have started when he was 2. You know, sometimes we don't think about a child that had so many ear infections and now, oh, he's not really learning to read. Well, did he ever hear all the sounds? Does he have a delay in his phonemic awareness? There's like little things that we can see on the record. So I really like looking at records. And obviously we like to do in-school observations, which is not possible right now, but we are doing Zoom observations. Look at work samples, and sometimes talk to the teachers because the teachers have great information and they want to help the kids. They wouldn't be educators if they did not want to help your child.
Yeah. We have a question here from Jessica. It says, if parents got services through non-public agencies, have you seen any reimbursements occurring? That's an interesting concept. A lot of parents are talking about if you know, they've been called co-teachers, they're having to pull a lot of this weight. Have you seen any examples of reimbursement?
Those wouldn't be non-public agencies. A non-public agency has to go to like a certification process through the state.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, non-public agencies would be Banyan Tree. What other, like Excite Steps? They have.
Okay, yeah. Have you seen any reimbursement going on?
Right now, I have not seen reimbursement going on. I haven't seen a lot of people filing. I have seen some districts hire MPAs. You know, you go to the IEP meeting, you talk about the difficulties, and I have seen positive reactions, which I was not expecting. Which I'm grateful for. But it all depends how you start providing those services, because in order to get reimbursed, you have to give a 10-day notice, or you have to give notice in an IEP meeting. If you just decide to go out and hire somebody and then try to get reimbursement, that's going to be very hard. But if you request the service from the district, let's say my child needs behavioral support, right? So I write, it has to be in writing. I write an email to the district, or I send a letter, and always make sure you send it by fax or certified mail because you want to be able to track it. And I request the service, and they send me a prior written notice letting me know that they don't think that service is necessary and that they're not going to fund it, right? So then I sent a 10-day notice explaining to them why I think it's necessary, supporting with some facts. And then I let them know that based on I'm not giving another option, I'm giving them notice that I intend to privately place my son or daughter with that agency, and I will be seeking funding / reimbursement from the district in the future. And that way you protect your funding. You don't send a 10-day meeting notice, 10-day notice letter, you're not going to get reimbursement unless you go to due process.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion. I'm not an attorney and I'm not providing legal advice, but that's usually how it works.
Yeah. Let's take Liz's comment. She said, my child has speech issues and has had no real instruction to keep her progress. She seems like she's regressing. We try to work on pronunciation at home. She later says, I'm not a speech therapist, though. I don't know how to help her. What would you tell her?
I would say keep data. If you would like to send me an email, I can send you some data collection sheets. That right now is the first time since I can remember that parents are able to record all the data. We're usually sitting at the table and we're giving the data, right? But now we are the ones working with the child. We're the ones seeing the difficulties or the progress, because it has worked both ways. There's some kids that have really done well with distance learning. We just have to record the data and keep a paper trail. I would be sending emails and emails and emails with my concerns, because that's what you need. You need the paper trail.
What kind of data are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about how many times you have to prompt her or model the enunciation of the words. When she's doing distance learning, how long is she able to attend to the class? How many times do you need to prompt her to go back to her chair? Because there's a lot of things going on. I had the opportunity to observe one of my clients like a week ago. And the first thing that I saw was I have a 7-year-old sitting in an adult desk with an adult chair. And this is a child that requires a lot of vestibular input, right?
Yeah.
So he's not able to touch the ground. So you see he's fidgeting and then he's swirling around the chair. And I'm thinking to myself, I need an OT to come in here and really look at this, because how can he learn if he's not even set up for learning?
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's a great point. Like you literally need the physical structures to be in place to make sure that if they need to fidget or if they need to press their feet against the floor or anything like that, that's an important part of just being able to pay attention.
We need parent training. I think that's the most important thing. And I'm telling everybody, request an AT evaluation. We're doing everything on the computer. Does your child have an assistive technology evaluation? If they don't, you need to get one, because now the computer is the method they're learning. Does the child...
Describe what you're talking about there, an assistive what?
Assistive technology is basically they do an assessment of what type of technology, both high tech and low tech. But what I would really like to see, or what I saw with this particular client, was that he couldn't manipulate the mouse. He needed a touch screen.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
You know, the mouse was getting in the way of him being able to learn. But it's an AT specialist, which is an assistive technology specialist, would be able to look at all that. Would be able to see, does the child require to wear headphones? What type of letter size do they need to be able to work? Do they need a different type of keyboard? Do they need a different type of screen? I can go on and on. There's a lot of things that these people are really highly trained in. That's why we have all these different services in the school districts. And in March, yes, they had their grace period. Yes, we had at-home orders. We couldn't go out, but that's gone. Right now, districts can open if they choose to. So they have to provide FAPE. They no longer can say we can't because we can't do it in person. Well, nobody's standing in their way. And like you said, they can do one-on-one. They can do small groups. There's a lot of guidance out there. And we're seeing other districts being able to do it.
Explain what FAPE is.
FAPE is free appropriate public education. So if your child is doing OT, okay, and then you get a list from the OT saying you need to have X amount of supplies, because I've been seeing this across the board. Well, the parents should not have to go out and buy it, right? The school should be supplying it. So my response with my clients is always like, oh, thank you so much for letting us know we need these supplies. Please let me know when you're going to be delivering them. Because, or a lot of people tell me, well, kids can learn digitally or virtually. Yes, they can if they have a parent next to them, prompting them, breaking down the assignments for them. But that's not free. The parent is doing the work, and the parent is not supposed to be doing that part. I understand there are kids, but a lot of our families are having to quit. One of the parents has had to quit their job. You know, it's going to be really hard on our community. Scott, you're muted.
I had to, so take care of something real quick. Thank you. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. Like, let's put into perspective what if you miss a year of special assistance? What if you miss 2 years? What could be the lasting impacts from that kind of situation? I mean, there is a sort of secondary chirping of an idea that maybe we should just call it off, like take a year off, put it all on hold, repeat fourth grade, repeat eighth grade, whatever it is. Like, this is a lost time. As these kids are, and I don't expect you to be a neurologist or whatever, but as these kids are developing, what have you seen in progress that somebody can experience in a year with proper support, and what they can lose with a year without anything?
To be honest, I think special education students don't have the luxury of taking a year off. We are already trying to catch up in some cases. Some other kids are working on functional skills. Some kids were developing speech. It's very hard to make a general statement because all these kids are so different.
Yeah.
But for a nonverbal child, a year is huge because they'll regress. or for a kid with behaviors, or the worst case scenario for a kid that has school refusal. Well, now they're in Disneyland, right? Because they don't have to go to school. Good luck getting that kid back in school because they already had school refusal prior to COVID. And now they've been at home for how many months? And we don't even know when this is going to end. So I don't think we have that luxury. I have seen kids that when provided the appropriate support, they make tremendous growth. I had a little girl that she transferred from the school district. She had dyslexia, and we got her to go to Newbridge. The amount of growth that girl made was like, I had never seen something. She's like the poster child of remediation, and it was in 1 year. And what would happen if we take it away? Well, they haven't generalized those skills, right? They may be able to do some skills in the therapeutic setting, but that doesn't mean they can do it out in the community. Yeah. And if we're at that point, we can just regress. It's really hard. The experts say, I've read a couple of articles on it, that special ed kids, especially mild to severe kiddos, may never regain what they lost during COVID. I try to be optimistic, and I try to think that we are going to be able to regain it, but taking a year off, I don't see how.
We have a question for Jessica again. Are the school districts providing those AT evaluations when requested, or are parents struggling to get evaluations completed by San Diego Unified?
I haven't seen a lot of struggle by San Diego Unified. We haven't been requesting a lot of assessments, to be honest. But the reality is you can request it. Worst case scenario, they'll give you a prior written notice and they will say no. And then you can fund it and get reimbursed for it. If that's a route you can take. But I really don't see how they can say no to an AT assessment when that's the way your child is supposed to learn right now.
Well, Carla, I appreciate you taking the time. There's some folks that would like to get your email. Can you share your contact information?
Yes. Do I type it in the chat or do I give it to you?
Just read it out. We'll make sure.
Okay. My email is Karla, Karla, at iepsandiego.com. And my website is www.iepsandiego.com.
Well, any last thoughts you would want to leave parents with as they wrestle with this topic, or just, parents in general trying to advocate for their own students as they go through this?
It's hard, and you are not a teacher. You're not a psychologist. You did not go to school to do this. So don't feel bad and don't blame yourselves. The school district should be supporting you, and just do the best you can, because it is a hard time and it takes a village. And if at any time you need someone to talk to or you need some support, just send me an email, contact me. I always have 5 minutes to listen to any concerns. And if I can be helpful in any way, I'm a parent too. I've been through it and I know how challenging it is.
Okay. Well, Karla Maldonado, appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your program, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very popular show on the internet. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That was Karla Maldonado. Again, I think we put her contact information in there. Appreciate everybody's questions and ideas. What have been your experiences? I'm very interested in it. What have been your questions? What should we track? We were all confused by that. It was a big spread in the UT where they said San Diego Unified is going to open for in-person appointment services for children who have special needs and accommodations. And then the voicemail came to our phones on Saturday, an announcement also that, whoa, I need to clarify that's not actually happening. And it won't happen until it's safe to happen, obviously indefinitely. So that was a real jarring moment in this jarring year. So what have been your experiences? I want to hear about them. Put them in there. If you have any questions, if I can't get to them, we'll try to follow them up. I want to thank Carla for joining us, and Megan Wood, our producer, who makes this possible. Stay for Friday. If you come back, we've been honing the Friday 5 back. So come back on Friday, 5 p.m. Friday 5 live. We'll be going through the 5 stories of the week that we find interesting and ranting a little bit. For all of us at Voice of San Diego, I have one last request. Would you consider going to voiceofsandiego.org/support, vosd.org/support? We post that link as well. We're still trying to finish our fundraising campaign that we started. We wanted to end it at the end of August. Got a couple more days to finish our goal. If you value any of the investigative explanatory work Voice of San Diego does, it requires funding of its own. vosd.org/support. Please consider going there. And my last point, PolitiFest is back, our annual celebration of debating and elections, usually at University of San Diego. One day, now it's 5 days, the end of October or end of September, beginning of October. We have a bunch of debates, the mayoral debate, we have city council, we have county supervisors, we've got all kinds of discussions. We have an interview with Javier Becerra, the Attorney General of the state of California, and we got a lot of great stuff. You can register at politifest.org. That's POLITIFEST.org, or you can go to voicesandiego.org/politifest. It all goes to the same place, and the registration is open today. Good job, Megan. Good job, team, to get that going. It's our first, obviously, digital version of this, but I think in a weird way, it's going to be our most diverse, most well-attended by far, because of all the people we can bring in without being restricted to one place. So thanks all for your support, and tune in Friday at 5 for the Friday 5 Live. We'll talk to you then.